Salut à tous et bienvenue dans l'épisode 19 du podcast Up&Thunder. C'est Pierre qui vous parle, je suis très heureux de vous retrouver. Et je fais rapidement cette courte intro en français puisque comme vous le constatez sûrement, la suite de l'épisode est en anglais. En effet, avec Constant, on a eu la chance de recevoir un beatwriter du Thunder qui travaille pour le Daily Thunder, Brandon Rahbar. C'était un vrai plaisir de discuter avec lui et de pouvoir parler de la franchise, sachant qu'il en a une très grande connaissance. Donc d'abord j'espère que vous nous pardonnerez nos erreurs d'anglais et notre accent un petit peu français, et ensuite j'espère que l'épisode vous plaira, et ça commence dès maintenant. So hello everybody and welcome to the Up&Thunder podcast, the only French podcast about the Thunder. I'm Pierre, as usual I'm with Constant. How are you, Constant?
Hello everybody, I'm fine, very happy to be here with a special guest.
Yeah, today's episode is in English because we have a very special guest with us, Brandon Rahbar, Thunder beatwriter for the Daily Thunder. Brandon, thank you so much for joining us. It will be a real pleasure talking with you about OKC.
Hey, I'm happy to be on. I love that the Thunder have fans in France and that you guys have this Twitter page and you guys are active talking about the Thunder in France. I think it's great. And you said my name. You pronounce it better than a lot of people here in America do. So well done.
I was scared about this because it's hard for us to say that. So I'm really pleased you said it.
yeah.
It's like
well
pronouncing Shai in France. We say
say
a lot
Shai.
Shai, but
Really?
it's really Shai.
Yeah. So first, Brandon, for the French fans who don't know you, can you just introduce yourself and maybe your work for the Daily Thunder?
Yeah, so I am the beat writer for dailythunder.com, and so I write articles for dailythunder.com. It's one of the biggest Thunder websites, and Royce Young started it, and he kind of passed the torch on to me, so I'm very excited about that. Of course, Royce is working with ESPN now, but he built up this site. And, it's got a lot of followers and, it's a very good community of fans that love the Thunder. And so I write for them, but I also cover the team in person, of course, COVID now. So I do it over the media calls on Zoom, but I still get to go to the arena. It's pretty cool. The media is the only one that's allowed at the arena right now. So I feel pretty special that I get to go to the home games still. That's a pretty cool thing. And I do podcasts for them, and it's just a cool deal. We do videos on Twitter. So, yeah, we do a lot of cool – if you're a Thunder fan, I think you'd enjoy dailythunder.com because we put out a lot of good content.
I just can advise all the French fans to follow you and to follow the Daily Thunder because it's always great stuff and great podcasts too. A little bit fun. You are very fun on Twitter. It's something with Constant we always love because you have the same way of thinking of us and you always find the right way to say things, and sometimes it's a little bit funny. So I just can advise all the people to follow you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I try to be positive and have fun on Twitter. I try to, give out good information about the Thunder, but also have some fun with it too. So I'm glad that you enjoy that.
I think you have the same passion than us for Poku, the famous Poku.
Yeah, Poku is great. I'm excited about Poku. He's still so young, and there's a learning curve and there's going to be some growing pains, but he's just a fun guy, and the potential is so high with him. But there's also a lot of material there that you can have fun with Poku.
Yeah.
And right now I'm very happy because we did like 5 minutes of podcasts, less than that, and we're already talking about Poku, so I'm very happy. Very happy with it.
Yeah, Poku's great.
He's a big fan of Poku.
Yeah, and then, the other Thunder rookie I'm sure you guys love, Theo Maledon, and I think Thunder fans here in Oklahoma City fell in love with him right away too, just because that first preseason game, he was so good and he looks so much better than a second round rookie. And so, we're excited about having Theo over here.
We were a little bit surprised that he was drafted in the second round. Here in France, we thought that he will more be a first round pick. But the fact that he was getting drafted by the Thunder, it was a very big surprise and a very big satisfaction, especially for us French fans.
Oh yeah, I bet that was very exciting. It was really exciting for us just because we knew that most people had him going in the first round. Most of the mock drafts had him going anywhere between number 20 to number 25. So I was excited to get him at number 34 in the second round because I knew he was more talented than that. And Tony Parker couldn't believe it. He thought for sure he was going to go in the first round. But I'm sure over there it was even more exciting being Thunder fans in France to get a French player to go to the Thunder.
Yeah, because we didn't have much French players with the Thunder. We have Geoffrey Lauvergne in the previous years. We have TLC, but now we have really a rookie who can be part of the future of the Thunder.
Yeah, and it's cool because two of the young guys are going to be here for a long time, Théo Maledon, but then also Luguentz Dort. I know he's not French, but he speaks French, so that's pretty cool. So we got two players on the team right now who speak your language, so that's pretty neat.
Before talking more about the Thunder this season, you said this year was special for you because you can go to the game at home, but not on the road. There is no fan attending the games. There is a lot of protocols against the pandemic. What are your feelings about this and your experience so far with this new way of covering the team? I believe you have less contact with all the staff and all the players.
Yeah, so before, last year, before COVID or any other year, we would go into the locker rooms after the games and we would interview the guys there. There would be a little press conference and we'd be around all the other media and Thunder staff. So this is much, much different. And of course, not having any fans in the arena, Oklahoma City is known for having the loudest fans in the NBA, and the fans are so passionate. And there's such a great home court advantage for the Thunder because the fans are so loud. And so it's a weird feeling to be in the arena and have it be so empty and having no fans there. But I do feel fortunate that I get to go because, I love watching live NBA basketball and especially the Thunder, and to get to go and to be, one of the only people that get to go. I don't take it for granted, even though it's different and it's a little weird. But they've been very, very careful. They take all the precautions when you come in. They take your temperature. They have a system. You have to fill out a survey every time before you come to make sure that you haven't had any sort of COVID symptoms in the past, week or whatever. And they're being very, very careful. They provide masks for everybody that comes in. And then once you're there, there's spacing between you and the other media members. And they have like a glass separator between you and the other media members. So the Thunder organization is being very careful. There's hand sanitizer stations everywhere. So you feel safe going in there. And even though there's no fans in the arena and it's different, it's still exciting to watch the Thunder live.
And the fact that you can go to the locker room, is that more difficult to have access and to have a conversation with the players when you can only have conference media by Zoom than go to the locker room to ask them questions directly? Is that more difficult to interact with the players?
Yeah, you said it perfectly. It is more difficult to interact with the players on Zoom for the calls because, it's always a little awkward, I think, for them because they're just staring at a computer screen. And, for us, instead of being right there in the locker room and you get to kind of have that interaction, it's the same with anything. Like, if you're talking to your mom or your brother or your sister, in person, or if you're talking to them over a Zoom call, it's a little more awkward and, you kind of wait for the other person to finish. You don't know quite when they're finished because there's a little bit of lag. And so it's a little bit different. Again, I feel fortunate that we even get to be doing it, but, I definitely much prefer the in-person interaction. It's definitely much smoother.
It's awkward for the players, but it must be awkward for you too, journalists, because like you said, you don't really know how to talk, how to ask a question, and that could be much difficult to ask questions and to have an interaction with the players if you were on the locker room.
Yeah, it is. It's more awkward for us too, and I think I know, like if we were all talking in a room, it would be natural, and you would see each other's faces, and when the other person's done talking, and you start talking. But with this, you had to raise your hand on the Zoom thing. You had to wait on the Thunder PR person to call on you, and then you ask your question, but they don't see your face because our videos aren't on, so they just hear a voice. It's they're doing the best they can with the situation. But definitely, kind of an awkward thing.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. The player can see your face where they're doing Zoom.
No, they don't have it set up that way. They have it set up where the journalist videos are off, so all they hear is a voice on the other end. They don't see our faces, so yeah.
It can be weird for them to don't see the journalist and you guys talking. I think it's weird.
Yeah, I'm sure it's weird for them. Yeah, but that's why you see, last year somebody like Darius Bazley was so funny in person. Like he's such a funny guy, and he liked kind of joking around with the journalist in person and stuff like that. But now when he does the interviews, he's not as funny and stuff like that. And I think part of that's just because he's not seen the people, he's not seen us, and he's just hearing a voice. So yeah, it's just a different thing overall. Hopefully next year we'll be back to normal.
I hope so. And are you optimistic about the continuation of the season? Because we have all those postponed games and more and more cases of COVID. So how do you see the future of the season?
I think it'll continue. I think the NBA has done a very good job ever since the beginning. Funny enough, the first case happened here in Oklahoma City. The Utah Jazz versus Thunder game, that was kind of the first experience, and things shut down that night. But they handled it very well since then, I think. From shutting it down to the bubble to quarantine to the reopening of the season, taking all the precautions. So I trust Adam Silver and the rest of the NBA to make the right decisions. I think that they will continue through the season. They left the second half of the schedule open because they probably assumed there would be some postponed games, and now they can reschedule all those with the whole back half of the season open. And now there's likely not going to be any Olympics, so they have a little bit more free time. They don't have to worry about all the players going and playing for their home teams now, so they have a little bit more time to work with if they need to extend the season a little bit. The season might go on a pause. I don't think it will, but even if it goes on, say, a 2-week pause to try to get things under control, I have faith that the season will finish at this year at some point. I don't know when it'll be, but yeah, I think they'll finish it.
Do you think that the NBA is capable of doing another bubble like it was the case last year? Because we have seen it in Orlando. The bubble is the perfect system for games. You don't have a external relationship, but we know that the players are not very big fan of the bubble. So do you think that if there are so many cases of COVID, the NBA is capable of, like you said, shut down the season for maybe 2 or 3 weeks and create another bubble?
That's a great question. The bubble really was the perfect system. I mean, it went off perfectly. I mean, there was no cases of COVID in the bubble because they ran it so smoothly. But I think it would be very difficult. Like you said, the players weren't big fans of it, some of them more than others. But the problem is now you're dealing with 30 teams instead of 20 teams, plus a longer season. If you still have, say, half of the season still to play instead of just 8 games and then the playoffs and then teams are going home when they're eliminated. I think there's so many more people involved, and for a much longer time, I think it would be very difficult to pull off the bubble again. Now, if they wanted to do the bubble again for just the playoffs, I think that's possible. But I think when you got 30 teams in the regular season, that'll be very, very difficult.
And the fact that in Orlando there is 3 basketball courts when you can actually play games, and with this night we have 11 games, I think it will be very complicated to have 30 teams in only 3 courts to play games on a nightly basis.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And I think that the NBA is hoping, with vaccinations coming and with hopefully things, on a downward trend with COVID cases, and with the NBA putting in even more strict protocols, I think that they're hoping with the combination of those things that they'll be able to finish the season. We'll see what happens, but I think that that's their hope.
So just before we start talking about the Thunder more precisely, I have a question that I love to ask all the insider. Do you have a story or a fun fact about you covering the team? Maybe a fun fact with a player or something?
Yeah. Let me think of the best story. One of my favorite stories from covering the Thunder was getting to see firsthand just kind of what cool guys these are, off the court, getting to see, how they interact with people. And one of the coolest things was Andre Robertson. I saw him last year, and everybody was kind of wondering where Andre Robertson was. And I got to see him interact. I won't give too much of it away because it was just kind of a cool thing that I saw, so I won't say too much. But I saw him help out a stadium worker that was kind of needing some help. I feel like he did it in private to help this person, so I don't want to give too much away. But I got to see it with my own eyes. And that's kind of my favorite takeaways from being on the insiders. You get to see kind of some funny stuff, and then you get to see some stuff. You're like, these guys are just, the Thunder do a very good job of bringing in high character people, people who are good guys off of the court. And, when you get to see kind of behind the scenes, them interacting with everyday normal people, like the staff of the Chesapeake Energy Arena, and just treating them so well. Those are the things that kind of stick with me the most.
We have this kind of impression in France that the Thunder, even if the players are not the same during the years, the Thunder is still a family. Maybe it's because it's a small market franchise, but we have this feeling that with Sam Presti, there's always a sense of family in this team.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You nailed it. The Thunder very much focus on family and community, and Sam Presti, you're right. That's important to him. And so it starts from the top. Sam Presti has developed a culture here in Oklahoma City. Family is first, and it's the way, I've met a lot of the Thunder staff from management, and all of them focus very much on family. And so the players are the same way, and they bring in players who, again, are high character guys, and they are tight knit. And here in Oklahoma City, it is a small market, and the people here, it's good people who love family, people who love helping others. And so the team reflects that as well. And I think that's another reason why the fans are so passionate about this team, because they see this team as very family and community oriented.
I think the word culture, like you said, it's very important for all the Thunder organization, and that's something we can see from here. And we are not worried about, for example, a reconstruction or a tanking season, because we have this culture. We always go to make players progress, to help all the communities around, and it's always going to be a good thing to have the Thunder around there, and to win game or not is not the biggest thing, I think, in the organization right now.
Right. I completely agree. Because, with the Thunder, it's a different thing. A lot of other NBA cities and markets, they only care about, whether the team is winning championships. Here in Oklahoma City, the fans are so bonded with the team itself and with the organization and what it represents, and how involved they are with community, that they just kind of cheer for the players themselves, and for them to get better, and for the team to have success. But it's not all about winning. I think that the fans here just support and love the team for being the team and what they represent. So it's cool to see that you guys feel the same way over there in France about the team.
Yeah, because when we saw how the Thunder handled the case of Andre Robertson, I don't think that any franchise in the NBA will have done the same thing that the Thunder have done for Robertson, even for Abrines 2 or 3 years ago. That really shows that the Thunder are not concerned about winning at all costs. They are really concerned about
The
the
human.
health of their player.
Yes, very much concerned about the health of their players. They put players first and foremost. And, you also see it in trades. They love their players, and they're going to take care of their players. And if they do end up trading players, they're always going to talk to them and see where they want to go, if they'll be happy there. Sam Presti is never going to trade a player to a situation that player doesn't want to be in. He always takes care of his players. And like you said, it goes from the health of the players to situations like trades. They always put their players first and treat them like people and not just numbers or products.
Like it was the case with the Schroeder trade when Presti asked Schroeder first if he wanted to go to the Lakers, and he did not just trade him for picks. He asked him first, and that really shows for me the fact that the Thunder is a healthy organization if you compare to other organizations who are not that kind with their players.
Right. Yep. Absolutely. I agree.
So now let's talk about the team and the beginning of the season. Just a simple question to start. What is for you the biggest storyline for the Thunder so far? Maybe a player, maybe collective things. What is for you the biggest storyline?
I think the biggest storyline for me is that the team looks much better and is playing much better than expected. They're 6-7 right now. And I think everybody thought that they were going to be the worst team in the NBA because they traded away Chris Paul and Dennis Schroeder and Danilo Gallinari and Steven Adams, because they want to get a top draft pick. They want an elite talent to pair with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander because they're building for the future. And it's a very smart way of building the team. They have all these assets and first-round draft picks. But when they're out there on the court, they want to win, and they're going to play to win. Mark Daignault's going to coach to win. And so they've been a lot better, I think, than people thought. I thought, 13 games into the season, most people would have predicted they'd probably be 3-10. But here they are, 6-7. And, there's been a few blowouts, but most of the losses have been very close, entertaining, competitive games. The second biggest thing that strikes me this season is the development of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He continues to look like a rising star. And then Lu Dort has just completely taken off. I mean, obviously, everybody knew that he was a world-class defender, one of the best defenders in the league after his rookie season and what he did to James Harden in the playoffs. But what he's doing offensively this season, shooting the three so well, taking it to the rim so well, I mean, he has just been phenomenal. So those are the things that strike me the most this season.
Yeah, I like that you mentioned Lu Dort because I just wrote big stuff about him where I analyze his game, analyze his shooting progression. What do you think is gonna be in the future? What is the future for Dort? Is he gonna be able to maybe take mid-range to play pick and roll? He didn't do that now, but maybe going to be a better offense player during his future year?
Yeah, I think that his offensive game will continue to grow because, he came in. The whole reason he wasn't drafted was because NBA teams didn't think that he could shoot. So everybody already knew, even as a rookie, that he would be a great defender. And at one point, he was projected to go in the first round. He kept falling down draft boards because, in the NBA, you got to be able to shoot now. And so people didn't think he could shoot. And here he is. His second year, he's shooting 44% from three. He's shooting like Steph Curry this year. It's unbelievable. I mean, it is absolutely nuts. And so he's finishing at the rim really well. He's leading the league in points per touch. As far as will he, expand to mid-range and continue to expand his game in other areas, I don't know. But at this point, I will not doubt Lu Dort in anything because that man has exceeded expectations every step of the way from moment one. So I wouldn't put it past him to keep expanding his game.
And this year, Lou Dort is a kind of Klay Thompson. Huge defense, huge three-point shooting percentage. And we have this conversation in France. Do you think that at the end of the season, Lou Dort could be one of the all-defensive team?
I do, yeah. You know, it's going to be interesting to see because they usually put a lot of weight on how good your team's record is. And by the end of the season, the Thunder probably are not going to have a very good record. But Lou Dort's reputation has grown and grown and grown as a great defender, and everybody knows it now. So I expect him to make an all-defensive team, which is unbelievable for an undrafted second-year player. I mean, it just shows how great he's been. I think that most people would agree that the best perimeter defender in the league right now is either Lou Dort or Drew Holiday. And so I do expect him to make the all-defensive team.
Because he's getting more and more recognition about the NBA All-Stars. People like Donovan Mitchell give him a lot of credit. Jamal Murray did the same too. So maybe the recognition could help to give him a nomination in the all-defensive team, even if the record of the Thunder is not very great.
You're exactly right. It's all about reputation, and his reputation is growing more and more every game. So, you know, the narrative is there. And, you know, as long as people recognize the name Lou Dort, I think he's got a good shot to make it. And it's just his name recognition and reputation is growing all the time. So I expect it to happen.
You talk a little bit about Shai. The biggest question before the season was, is he a point guard or is he more like a two? Now we can see that he has capacity to play point guard, and maybe he's more than just a second option in the future. Maybe a real playmaker, a real superstar, maybe. Do you think he can be the leader of the future team and maybe the team who are going to win the first title for OKC?
Yeah, he's another guy that between Shai and Lou Dort, the Thunder have two players that, you know, have taken a real leap this season. You know, you're right. The question was, can he be a point guard? Because, you know, his first year with the Clippers, they shared the ball a lot. He wasn't the primary guy. And then last year, he shared the ball with Chris Paul and Dennis Schroeder. They had 3 point guards. So they turned the keys over to him this season, and everybody was wondering, can he do it? Can he lead a team? And so far, you know, he's increased his numbers across the board. His percentages are better. His points are higher. And his assists, he's doubled. He's more than doubled his assists from last year. And his turnovers remain incredibly low. His assist to turnover ratio is elite right now. He's getting more assists. He's setting other guys up, but he's not turning the ball over. So those are good signs. You know, it's hard to say, as great as he's been, you know, can he lead the team to a championship as a number one guy? You know, I don't know. I don't know if he can be, you know, a top 10 player in the league, but I know that he's getting better and better. And he's only 22, and I know he's really smart, and I know that he's got great work ethic. So I expect him to continue to get better. I do think he'll be an all-star player. I think he's that talented. And I think that if you put another player with Shai that's as good as Shai, let's say that the Thunder get, you know, a Cade Cunningham or a Jalen Suggs in this year's draft, and let's say that, you know, they can kind of both be the leaders of the team, and maybe, you know, one night it's Shai, one night it's Cade or Jalen Suggs or one of those guys. I think that Shai is talented enough to maybe lead a team deep into the playoffs as the number one guy if you put other good players around him when he's in his prime, or, you know, you put somebody a little bit better than him or equal to him, and maybe that's a title contending team. I do think that he's going to end up being, you know, an all-star, multi-all-star player. I think he's that good.
I also think that this year he has taken a major step in leadership. If you compare to the previous year, last year, of course, there was Chris Paul was the leader of this team, but I was not ready to see Shai such a leader such quickly on this team. You when you see him on the court, off the court, you have the feeling that the team is for him. He's the real leader of this team, and it impressed me. I was not ready for that. And you, who cover the Thunder, were you ready to see such a quick leadership from Shai?
I think you're right. I think it's surprising how quickly it happened, but I think that has a lot to do with him being mentored by Chris Paul last year. I think Chris Paul is one of the best leaders in the entire league, and I think Shai learned a lot from him. Chris Paul took him under his wing, and Shai just soaked it up like a sponge. Like he loved Chris Paul, and I think he learned a lot from him. But I think it's also very telling about Shai, you know, being around those guys and in the locker room and seeing him from day one in Oklahoma City. He's a smart guy. I mean, he's 22 years old, but his IQ and his maturity is much higher than a 22-year-old's normally is in this league. And the way he handles himself on and off the court, he's just a mature guy, and he wants to be great. He says it over and over again in his interviews when he's talking about players who are great. He says he wants to be one of those guys. So it's surprising that it happened so quick, but then again, it's not surprising just because of the kind of person that he is.
Yeah.
You mentioned Shai and Dort, but you didn't talk about the third guy, maybe Darius Bazley. How do you feel about him for the beginning of the season? I mean, I'm a little bit disappointed of him right now because he looks a little bit lost in offense. He looks maybe he has no more confidence in himself. Maybe he's not in rhythm. But the last games he was not good. That was not the Bazley I expected in year two. So what do you think of him so far?
Yeah, he's been very up and down this season. You know, he'll have a 3-game stretch where he scores in double digits and gets double-digit rebounds. Then he'll have a 3-game stretch where he scores, 5 or 6 points and only gets a few rebounds. I think he's still learning his role on the team because he's really trying to lock in on defense right now, and I think that's affecting his offense. Over the past several games, he's taken on a lot of really good offensive players on the defensive end, and I think it's affected his offense. I do think that his skill set and his talent, I think that he's got a good high ceiling, but I think we're going to continue to see him up and down all season long. I think we'll see games where he scores 20 points, and then he might follow it up with a game where he scores 3 points. I think he's going to continue to get better, but I think he'll continue to be inconsistent just because he doesn't quite know his role on the team. I think he's still trying to kind of figure that out.
Like you said, I have the same feeling as you about Bazley. I think that sometimes he tries too hard to be the guy on offense. He doesn't have the skills to be the primary option on offense. And that causes him to have such games where where he's able to score 20 points and other game where he only scores 5 points.
Right, exactly. A lot of times you'll see him, he'll get kind of tunnel vision, and you can tell that he just decides that he's going to take it to the rim no matter what. And there might be 3 defenders there at the rim, and he still takes it up. And then, of course, he gets a shot blocked or he misses it. And it kind of needs to learn more about when to pass. If you're driving and a defender comes to help out and double teams you, to kick it back out to the open guy. Those are the kind of things that's going to make him a better player once he starts to figure those things out.
And I think there are a lot of expectation about the capacity of Bazley to create for others, because you have a good handle, you have good drive, you have skills to do that. But so far we didn't see that.
Right. You're exactly right. For being as tall and long as he is and playing the power forward position, he really does have great handles. And you don't see that very often. But I think because of that, there was an expectation that maybe he can be a point forward, and maybe he's trying a little bit too much. The ball should be mostly in Shai's hands and Teo Maladone's hands to set others up. I like that the Thunder have guys like Bazley and Poku who, are 7-footers who can handle and pass, but that doesn't mean they need to try to do it all the time.
Yeah. Could you think Bazley in the future could move to a center spot? Could he play at the 5 more than a 4 in a small ball lineup?
Yeah, I think in a small ball lineup he can. I actually wish that Billy Donovan would have tried that in the playoffs last year against the Rockets. Because the Rockets played small ball with PJ Tucker at the center, and I thought that was a prime opportunity for Donovan to try to play Bazley at the 5. I wish he would have done it, because with the new NBA and it kind of going positionless basketball, I think you got a guy like Bazley who's got, a 7-foot wingspan. He may not be 7 feet, but his wingspan is, but can shoot. I think that would be a really good weapon as a small ball 5.
Yeah, because he have the defense to be able to guard a very good player who can play at the 4, at the 5. We have seen defense on LeBron, maybe a little bit on Jokic, and if he's able to play at the 5, it could be a really good thing for the Thunder in years to come.
Yeah, it really could, and I think that the Thunder will try it eventually. I think that this season is kind of an experiment to see where guys fit, and what positions they can play and what positions they're best suited to. Bazley's interesting because maybe he's best suited at the 3 as a small forward, as a long small forward, or maybe he's best where he is right now at the 4, the power forward, or maybe you put him at the 5 at center and you realize that you got a great small ball 5. A lot of that would probably depend on if he can put on a little bit more muscle. So, the bigger 5s that he goes against, he can bang with them a little bit more. But I think absolutely, the jury's still out on Bazley and what he's going to end up becoming. He's one of the more intriguing players that the Thunder have, because he's got a great skill set for his size, but I don't think anybody quite knows what he's going to end up being yet.
Yeah.
Just before we end the podcast, I would like to talk to you about the Thunder's strategy in the future, because we know the Thunder is targeting future drafts. And how do you feel about this year? Is it the year to do everything to get the first pick and Cade Cunningham, for example, or Mobley or Jalen Suggs, or we can wait and just see what happened during 5, 3, or 4 years, for example?
Like what you think the plan is going to be?
Yeah.
What I think the plan is going to be? Yeah, I think that the Thunder want a top 5 pick this year, because this is a very deep draft. This is a very talented draft. The top 5 guys in this draft all would have gone number 1 in last year's draft. That's how good this draft is. Of course, the best player is Cade Cunningham, and he's actually playing at Oklahoma State right now. So he's just down the road from Oklahoma City. So, of course, Thunder fans would love to have him. He would be the best option. And you could put him – what's great about him is he's such a big point guard, and so is Shai. You could do what the Thunder did last year with Chris Paul and Schroeder and Shai, and have 3 guards out there with Shai, Cade, and Dort. They can kind of all switch it up and play different positions. Or you go with a guy like Jalen Suggs, who's again an incredible player and an incredible shooter. What's great about Shai is that you can put him next to any player and he'll thrive, because he can be a point guard, or he can play shooting guard like he did last year a lot, or he can even play small forward because he's 6'6". Shai is so versatile. Mobley would be outstanding, because they really don't have, we talked about maybe Bazley at center as a small ball, but it's not ideal. But Mobley is a guy who's a true 7-footer, and he can shoot, he can handle, he can pass, he can score down low. He's a great defender and shot blocker. Then you got Kuminga, who'd be a perfect 4, because he can play 2 ways, both defend and play offensively. Jalen Green would be great. I think anybody in this draft would help the Thunder immensely if they can get a top 5 pick, and I think that's their hope, is they get a top 5 pick. Long-term plan, I think that they want to get a great player from the 2021 draft and the 2022 draft, and then after that, I think you'll see the Thunder start to take a lot of their assets, their future draft picks, maybe trade for a star or trade for some young guys with a lot of potential, maybe sign a free agent. And I think that they want to start competing again and contending again in 2023. Get a great guy in 2021, a great guy in 2022, and then pair them with Shai and Dort and see what you can start doing as far as contending in 2023.
I agree. Yeah. I agree with that.
I have a last question. What are your first impressions with Coach Daignault first season and the fact that the offense of the Thunder is miles away from what the offense was last year, with a lot of three-point shooting, not a lot of mid-range, and the fact that the offense is not very efficient this year during those first games? What are your first impression of this new offense of the Thunder and more globally of the first game of Coach Daignault?
I've been impressed with Coach Daignault just because you're right. The offensive efficiency is really bad, but if you watch the offense that they're running good offense. They're getting good shots. They're getting open shots. They're finding the open man. They're just not as talented as they were last year. You know, when you trade away Chris Paul and Schroeder and Adams and Gallinari, that is a lot of great offense. Those are great offensive players. And, you know, and you replace them with, you know, some pretty good players with George Hill and Al Horford. And then Bazley is starting, but they're just not as good as they were talent-wise last year. So I think that's been the bigger reason why the offensive efficiency is down. But when you see the plays that Daignault draws up and you see how these players are kind of exceeding expectations and he's kind of getting the best from each player, I think so far Daignault has done a really good, solid job. And the defense has been good. You know, as bad as the offense has been, the defense has been around league average, which doesn't sound great. But, you know, again, when you have so many rookies and second-year players and young players, most of this roster that's getting minutes are 19, 20, 21, 22 years old. These are young players. And so when I think you take all that into consideration, Daignault's doing a pretty good job.
Yeah, there's a kind of defensive mentality that the Thunder have. And even with young players, basically everybody on the Thunder are concerned on defense. And they didn't want to score at any cost. They want also to play defense. And I think that's a very good point with the first game of Daignault, this defense mentality.
Yeah, I think it is because, you know, when you have young players, you know, offensive ability, that takes a while to learn. You know, you have to, you know, learn, you have to improve your shooting. You have to learn the sets. You have to learn the different plays and all those things. But with defense, that's all about effort. That's all about hustle. That's all about energy. That's all about wanting to try hard. And he's got these guys bought in. They're trying hard. The effort is there. Those guys have more effort than every team they're playing. And that's why the defense has been solid considering the talent that they have on the roster and how young they are. And so I think that the defensive mentality, you're right, is the best way to go.
I think it's time to wrap up the episode. Brandon, again, thank you for coming in your podcast. It was really a huge thing for us to have you with us. So if you're not following Brandon on Twitter, go follow Brandon at Brandon Rahbar and also follow the Daily Thunder accounts at Daily Thunder. I think it is.
Yep, that at Daily Thunder and at Brandon Rahbar. Thank you guys for having me. It was fun, and again, I love that you guys are following the Thunder over there in France, and you guys are doing a great job as well. I see your content. I follow you guys on Twitter, so keep up the great work.
Thank you.
Just ask if you need a translation for the French world of Theo and Luguentz Dort.
Yeah, I will. It's so funny. I get on these media calls and they'll get these French questions, and I have no idea what they're saying, but it sounds beautiful, whatever they're saying.
Thank you so much, Brandon, and go follow him at Brandon Rahbar for all the Thunder stuff. And I hope you like this episode, the second in English, and see you soon. Je repasse rapidement en français, j'espère que l'épisode vous a plu. En tout cas, c'était vraiment quelque chose d'énorme pour nous d'avoir un tel invité dans le podcast. N'hésitez pas à nous faire vos retours sur l'épisode, nous dire si ça vous a plu, si les épisodes en anglais c'est quelque chose à développer. En tout cas, nous, ça nous intéresse vraiment de développer cette partie-là du podcast. Ensuite, n'hésitez pas à nous demander aussi si vous voulez une petite traduction sur certains passages que vous n'avez peut-être pas compris. On fera ça avec plaisir. En attendant un prochain épisode, vous pouvez vous abonner au podcast sur toutes les plateformes d'écoute. Abonnez-vous aussi à notre chaîne Twitch et à notre chaîne YouTube. On sera là dès la semaine prochaine en live sur notre chaîne Twitch. Allez aussi régulièrement sur notre site web wearethunder.fr où on publie des recaps de matchs. On publie aussi des articles un peu plus denses comme le dernier que j'ai publié sur Luguentz Dort. Si vous ne l'avez pas lu, allez le faire. Et voilà, on se retrouve très vite. À bientôt et salut.